Plastic surgeon's experiment left me as a woman. There are moments in life when you look in the mirror and feel like you're staring at a stranger. For me, that moment wasn't sudden. It had been building for years, creeping in at the edges of my mind like an unanswered question I was too afraid to ask. I was Ryan Carter, a man in name but little else. On paper, my life was fine. Stable job, decent apartment, the kind of existence that didn't raise any eyebrows. But every morning, when I dragged myself out of bed and into the bathroom, I would glance at my reflection and feel nothing. Not pride, not satisfaction, just a dull, persistent emptiness. I tried to fill it with distractions. I worked late at my mind-numbing office job, buried myself in mindless TV shows, went out drinking with coworkers who barely noticed if I was there. None of it helped. The worst part was the loneliness. Not the kind that comes from being single, but the kind that settles in your bones even when you're surrounded by people. I had no deep connections, no one who truly knew me. But then again, how could they? I didn't even know myself. There were moments, quiet ones, where I let my mind wander to places I never dared explore. A curiosity about things I wasn't supposed to think about. What if I looked different? What if I felt different? What if I wasn't supposed to be who I was? Of course, I shoved those thoughts aside. I told myself it was ridiculous. I had a life, an identity, and even if I wasn't happy, wasn't that just part of being an adult? You put your head down, you keep moving forward. But deep down, I knew I was just running in circles. Then came the night that changed everything. The night that changed everything started like any other, a drink in my hand, my mind lost in the hum of conversation around me, sitting alone at the corner of some forgettable bar. I wasn't looking for company, but company found me. You look like a man who's got nothing left to lose. I glanced up. The speaker was older, refined. Sharp suit, silver-streaked hair, the kind of man who carried himself like he owned the room. His piercing gaze unsettled me. I smirked bitterly. Is it that obvious? He slid into the seat across from me, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. You have that look, like you don't belong in your own skin. A strange chill ran through me. And you're a mind reader? He chuckled. No, just someone who recognizes something unspoken. Something about the way he said it made my stomach twist. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a sleek black business card and placing it on the table between us. Dr. Alexander Moreau, experimental aesthetic surgeon. I frowned. I'm not interested in plastic surgery. You should be, he said smoothly. I offer something different. Something that could make you who you were meant to be. His words struck a nerve. What the hell does that mean? He leaned in, his voice lowering. A complete transformation. Not just nips and tucks. A rebirth. I should have laughed. I should have pushed the card back, told him he was insane. But instead, I found myself gripping it, staring at the name, my heart pounding in a way that had nothing to do with fear. What's the catch? I asked. There's always a catch, he admitted. But you'll have to come see me to find out. He stood, draining the last of his drink before offering a final, knowing smile. The real question is, do you want to keep living a lie? And just like that, he was gone. But his words stayed with me. I didn't sleep that night. I kept turning the card over in my fingers, feeling its weight, feeling the possibility. For the first time in my life, I wondered, what if I was living a lie? And what if Dr. Moreau had the answer? I must have stared at Dr. Moreau's business card for hours that night, turning it over, running my thumb along its edges, wondering if I had lost my mind for even considering it. A complete transformation? It was absurd, impossible. And yet, his words had burrowed deep into my skull. You don't belong in your own skin. How the hell had he known? I told myself I wouldn't call. I told myself this was crazy. But the more I tried to push it away, the more something inside me clawed to know the truth. Was it possible? Could I really change? 2 days later, I found myself standing outside his clinic. It didn't look like a medical facility, not in the traditional sense. Sleek, modern, almost too pristine. As if it existed outside reality. I hesitated, my fingers hovering over the door handle. Every instinct screamed at me to turn around, go back to my ordinary, miserable life. But something stronger pulled me forward. The receptionist greeted me with a polite smile and led me to Dr. Moreau's office. He was already waiting, seated behind an enormous desk, studying me like a puzzle he was close to solving. "I had a feeling you'd come," he said, steepling his fingers. I swallowed hard. "I don't know why I'm here." "Yes, you do." His gaze was knowing, patient. I exhaled sharply, shaking my head. "Even if I wanted this, it's not possible." He leaned forward. "What if I told you it was?" I crossed my arms, skeptical. "What exactly are you offering?" His lips curled into a small smile. "A complete physiological transformation. Your body, your features, everything down to the cellular level. No scars, no signs of surgery. It would be as if you had always been someone else." I couldn't speak. The weight of his words settled over me like a crushing force. He continued, his voice softer now. "People spend their whole lives trapped in bodies that don't match their souls. What if I could give you the chance to align yourself, to become who you were always meant to be?" The room felt too small, too warm. I was suffocating under the weight of my own thoughts. I don't know," I whispered. "Tell me, Ryan." His voice was steady, calm. "If you looked in the mirror tomorrow and saw her looking back at you, would that feel right?" My breath hitched. My throat tightened. I had spent years burying those thoughts, ignoring the quiet, persistent ache in my chest. But his words yanked them to the surface, raw and undeniable. I clenched my fists. "Why me?" Dr. Moreau smiled slightly. "Because I see something in you, a willingness to change, a desire for something more." I couldn't answer. I just sat there, staring at the floor, my mind a storm of fear and longing. "Take your time," he said finally, sliding a folder across the desk. "Inside, you'll find everything you need to know. If you choose to move forward, call me." I grabbed the folder and left, my heart hammering. I spent the next week in a haze of self-doubt and obsession. I read through the folder a dozen times, absorbing every detail of the procedure. It was revolutionary, experimental, irreversible, and terrifying. I kept looking at myself in the mirror, trying to imagine a different reflection staring back. Could I really do this? Could I just let go of Ryan Carter? One night, on a whim, I went to a department store. I found myself wandering through the women's section, heart pounding, feeling like I didn't belong. But my hands moved before my mind could stop them, tracing the fabric of soft blouses, picking up a skirt I had no reason to wear. I bought them. When I got home, I locked my door, shut the curtains, and stared at the bag on my bed as if it were something dangerous. My fingers trembled as I pulled out the clothes. Slowly, hesitantly, I changed. The moment the skirt slid up my legs, something inside me cracked open. I stepped in front of the mirror, breath shallow. My reflection was still Ryan, broad shoulders, sharp jawline, but there was something else there now. A glimpse of the person buried underneath. My chest tightened. My hands curled into the fabric. What if Dr. Moreau was right? What if this was always who I was meant to be? I reached for my phone. Before I could overthink it, I dialed the number. It rang twice before his voice came through, smooth and expectant. "I was wondering when you'd call." I swallowed hard. My decision was made. "When can we start?" The first thing I noticed after the procedure was how wrong everything felt. Waking up, I expected to feel different, but I hadn't anticipated the sheer alienness of my own body. My limbs were lighter, my skin smoother, my center of gravity entirely thrown off. I tried to sit up, but the weight distribution was all wrong, and I nearly toppled off the hospital bed. Panic clawed at my throat. I brought my hands up, hesitant, trembling. My fingers brushed over softer cheeks, fuller lips. My Adam's apple was gone. Lower, my body curved in ways that felt unfamiliar but, deep down, not unwelcome. Dr. Moreau stood beside me, watching with quiet patience. "Take it slow," he advised. "Your mind will need time to adjust." Adjust. As if that were something I could do overnight. The days that followed were a battle. Even the simplest tasks became a challenge. Walking took practice. My hips swayed differently. My legs moved with a new rhythm that I hadn't yet mastered. My voice had softened, and I stumbled over my own words, startled by the sound of her. But the hardest part wasn't the physical transformation. It was stepping outside. The first time I ventured into the world as Riley, I felt like an imposter in my own skin. Every glance felt like scrutiny. Every murmur, a whispered judgment. I kept my head down, shoulders hunched, my old habits betraying me. I was terrified of being seen. And then it happened. At a coffee shop, a man bumped into me while I was fumbling with my new purse. "Sorry, miss," he muttered absent-mindedly before walking away. "Miss." It was such a small thing, but it sent a shock through me. He hadn't looked twice, hadn't questioned me. For the first time, I wasn't pretending. I wasn't sure if I wanted to cry or laugh. But for every small victory, there were setbacks. A week later, I ran into my old friend Jason. We had worked together for years, gone out for drinks, commiserated about our dead-end jobs. He didn't recognize me at first. Why would he? But then his eyes narrowed. "Ryan," he asked, his voice laced with disbelief. I froze. For a second, I considered lying, pretending I was someone else. But no, that wasn't who I was anymore. "It's Riley now," I said, my voice quieter than I intended. His face twisted, like he was struggling to process what he was seeing. Then, he laughed, sharp, bitter. "You're kidding, right?" I felt my stomach drop. "I'm not." He scoffed. "Jesus. What the hell happened to you?" I had prepared for this. I knew not everyone would understand. But knowing and experiencing it firsthand were two different things. My hands clenched, nails digging into my palms. "Nothing happened," I said, forcing myself to stand taller. "I just finally became who I was supposed to be." He shook his head in disgust. "I don't even know what to say to you." "Then don't say anything." My voice was steadier this time. Stronger. Jason left without another word. I sat down on a nearby bench, my chest tight. It hurt. Even knowing that some people wouldn't accept me, it still hurt. But then my phone buzzed. "Delilah, hey! Wanna grab dinner tonight? I wanna help you with your hair. It's got so much potential." I smiled, warmth pushing through the ache in my chest. I wasn't alone. I had lost something, yes, but I had gained something too. And I wasn't turning back. The moment I truly became Riley didn't happen in a grand, cinematic way. There was no single defining event, no magical moment where the world suddenly accepted me. Instead, it was a series of small, quiet victories that built into something undeniable. The biggest one came the night Delilah insisted on a makeover. "Trust me," she grinned, dragging me to her apartment. "We're unlocking your full potential tonight." I laughed nervously but let her work her magic. She started with my hair, styling it into soft waves that framed my face, giving me a look I barely recognized but liked. Then came the makeup, the soft sweep of foundation, the careful strokes of eyeliner, the touch of lipstick that made my lips look fuller, more me. When she finished, she spun my chair toward the mirror. I inhaled sharply. The person staring back wasn't a stranger anymore. She was me. For the first time, I didn't see Ryan trying to fit into Riley's world. I saw a woman who belonged here, who had always been here, waiting for her moment to step forward. I smiled, and it wasn't hesitant or unsure. It was real. Delilah clapped her hands together. "Oh my God, you're glowing." I laughed, warmth spreading through my chest. I feel good." She grinned. "You should. You look incredible. And we're so going out to show you off." An hour later, I found myself in a crowded rooftop bar, the city lights twinkling behind me. I wasn't hiding in the shadows or keeping my head down. I was standing tall, laughing, living. A man approached, offering me a drink. He wasn't aggressive or condescending, just friendly, charming. He saw me as I was, as I wanted to be seen. And for the first time, I let myself enjoy it. Not because I needed external validation, but because I believed in who I was. I belonged here. I wasn't pretending anymore. I was Riley. I never thought I'd go back. Not to that office, that life, that past. But there I was, standing outside my old workplace, heart hammering against my ribs. A part of me wanted to turn around, to walk away and never look back. But another part, stronger, more determined, knew I needed this. I needed to prove to myself that I wasn't afraid anymore. I had spent years hiding from my reflection, shrinking into the background, pretending to be someone I wasn't. But today I wasn't hiding. Today, I was Riley Carter. I took a deep breath and stepped inside. The office was just as I remembered. Gray walls, fluorescent lights, the dull hum of computers. Heads turned as I walked through, eyes widening, whispers spreading like wildfire. I didn't falter. Then I saw him. Jason. His face went pale the moment he recognized me. "Ryan," he muttered, disbelief thick in his voice. I met his gaze, unflinching. "It's Riley," he scoffed, shaking his head. "You really went through with it?" I lifted my chin. "Yeah, I did." Jason looked me up and down, his expression unreadable. Then, with a cold laugh, he said, "I don't get it. You had a normal life. Why throw it all away?" Something inside me snapped. I stepped closer, my voice steady, unwavering. "Because it wasn't my life. It was a mask. A prison. And I'm done pretending to be someone I'm not." His smirk faltered. I continued, my voice thick with emotion. "I spent years trying to fit into a mold that was never meant for me. I let fear control me. But not anymore." I exhaled, letting the weight of it all lift from my shoulders. "I'm happy now, Jason. And whether you understand that or not, it doesn't change the fact that this is who I am." Silence. Then, Jason shook his head and walked away without another word. And just like that, the last chain of my past broke. I wasn't looking for his approval. I wasn't looking for anyone's approval. I was finally free. As I turned to leave, a familiar voice called out, "Riley." I turned to see my old co-worker, Emily, standing nearby, a hesitant smile on her face. "I love your dress," she said softly. "And for what it's worth, I think you look amazing." Warmth spread through my chest. I smiled, genuinely, completely. "Thank you." And as I stepped out of that building, out of my old life, I knew one thing for certain. I had won. Life didn't change overnight. There was no sudden moment where everything clicked into place, no instant acceptance from the world around me. But that was okay. Because for the first time, I accepted myself, and that was enough. Mornings were different now. I no longer avoided the mirror. Instead, I greeted my reflection with a quiet smile, running my fingers through my hair, adjusting the little details that made me me. At work, I had moved on from my old job. There was no place for Riley in Ryan's world, and I had no desire to fit in where I wasn't wanted. Instead, I found something better, a role that made me feel valued, respected. It wasn't just about making a living anymore. It was about building a life that truly belonged to me. Friendships shifted. Some, like Jason, faded away. Others, like Emily, stuck by my side, proving that real connections weren't about who I used to be, but about who I had become. And then there was Delilah. She had been there from the beginning, guiding me when I felt lost, pushing me forward when I wanted to run back. One night, as we sat on her balcony overlooking the city, she clinked her wine glass against mine and smirked. "So what's next for Riley Carter?" I thought about it for a moment, a slow smile spreading across my lips. "Everything." She laughed. Damn right. I wasn't afraid anymore. I had spent so long trapped in a body, a life, a lie that never fit. Now I was finally free. Not perfect, not without struggles, but free. And that was more than I had ever dared to hope for. For so long, I thought happiness was something I had to earn, something I had to deserve. I believed that if I kept pretending, kept playing the part the world expected of me, one day I'd wake up and finally feel whole. But happiness isn't something you wait for. It's something you claim. Becoming Riley wasn't about changing who I was. It was about finally embracing the person I had always been. There were losses, yes. People who didn't understand. Challenges I never expected. But what I gained was worth more than I ever imagined. Self-respect, confidence, freedom. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. You don't have to justify being yourself. You don't need permission to live your truth. You just have to be brave enough to take that first step. And once you do, the world opens up in ways you never thought possible.